Raphael Blackthorn, please, you have to believe me. I didn't steal the pendant.
Annika, you are
The study was dim, shadows clinging to the corners like silent accusers. The fire burned low, throwing fractured light across the Baron's face as he stood by the hearth, broad shoulders stiff, jaw carved from stone. Annika stepped inside, her heart hammering. She could taste fear like iron on her tongue. The heavy door closed behind her with a finality that made her knees weak. "Explain," Raphael said, his voice low and lethal, each syllable weighted with scorn. He did not look at her. His eyes were fixed on the pendant dangling from his hand, the chain glinting accusingly in the firelight. "I did not take it," Annika whispered, clutching her apron like a shield. Her voice trembled, but her gaze, dark and wide, searched his face for mercy. He turned then, eyes colder than she had ever seen. "And yet it was found beneath your pillow. Do you take me for a fool?" The words cut sharper than any blade. She flinched but forced herself to stand taller, though her spirit quaked. "Someone placed it there. I swear on my mother's grave, my hands are clean." Raphael's laugh was bitter, humorless. A thief and a liar, fitting. He stepped closer, towering over her. His nearness was both intoxicating and suffocating. She could smell the whiskey on his breath, the heat of his anger radiating like fire. "Why, Annika?" His voice cracked unexpectedly, softer, raw. "Why would you betray me?" The tremor in his tone was worse than his fury. It pierced her chest, threatening to shatter her. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to let them fall. "Because I did not," she whispered fiercely. "Even if you despise me, even if you think me wretched, I would not wound you so." For a heartbeat, his gaze flickered, conflict twisting in his eyes. Then he slammed the pendant down onto his desk, the sound echoing like a gunshot. "Until the truth is known, you will not step beyond these walls. You are bound to this house, like a prisoner." His words were final, merciless. Annika's chest tightened, her spirit crumbling under the weight of his mistrust. And yet, even through her despair, she saw it, the flicker of doubt in his storm-gray blue eyes. The servants' hall buzzed with hushed voices as dusk fell over the manor. The long wooden table bore the remains of supper, but no one paid the crumbs any mind. Betty, her fiery hair glowing like embers in the lamplight, leaned back with a coy smile that did not reach her green eyes. "Imagine," she purred, her voice rich with mock sympathy, "our sweet Annika, caught red-handed with the Baron's pendant tucked under her pillow. A poor orphan girl's hands grow quick when gold is near." The girls erupted in stifled giggles. A few glanced toward Annika, who sat at the far end, shoulders hunched, fingers knotted tightly in her lap. She tried to hold her silence, to keep her dignity intact, but the sting of their laughter was sharper than a whip. Betty toyed with her braid, her eyes darting deliberately toward Raphael's empty chair at the head of the hall. "Of course," she went on, her voice dripping with sweetness, "the Baron is far too generous. He takes pity on strays. Some mistake his kindness for affection. Some," her eyes slid to Annika, narrowing like a predator on prey, "dream foolish dreams of becoming more than a servant." Heat rose to Annika's cheeks, and her throat tightened as whispers flitted like smoke around the table. She could not breathe beneath the weight of their jeers. "Tell us, Annika," Betty pressed, feigning innocence, her smile edged with cruelty. "Did you think he would choose you? That you could warm his bed, wear his jewels? Men like the Baron don't marry girls plucked from the gutters." The words landed like blows. Annika's chair scraped against the wooden floor as she stood abruptly, her dark eyes blazing with unspoken fury. For a heartbeat, silence fell, until Betty's mocking laugh shattered it. "She fancies herself above us," Betty said smugly, "but a thief will always be a thief." Annika fled, the hall, heart-pounding, the echo of laughter trailing her like a cruel ghost. Yet deep inside, beneath the ache, a spark lit. A defiance that refused to die. If they would not see her truth, she would make them. The corridor outside the servants' hall was dim, lit only by flickering sconces that cast long shadows across the stone walls. Annika pressed her back to the cold surface, her breath coming in ragged bursts as she tried to will the sting of humiliation away. Footsteps echoed, a soft rustle of skirts. Betty emerged, her red hair gleaming like fire even in the half-dark, her lips curled in a smile that was far too triumphant. "Well," Betty murmured, folding her arms beneath her ample bosom, "you put on quite a show, little stray. Running out like that only proves guilt. The Baron will see it. Everyone will." She leaned in, her perfume cloying, her whisper sharp as broken glass. "Don't waste your tears on him. A man like Raphael needs a wife with blood and breeding, not one with mud under her nails." Annika swallowed, her throat dry. "I stole nothing," she whispered hoarsely, clutching her apron as if it might shield her. Betty's laugh was low, venomous. "Believe what you like, darling, but when the Baron casts you out, I'll be there to take your place at his side." Before Annika could reply, a new presence filled the corridor. Heavy boots against stone, the subtle shift of authority that made Betty's smirk falter. Raphael stood at the far end, his face unreadable in the wavering light. His gray-blue eyes flicked once to Annika, then settled on Betty with a coldness that drained the triumph from her smile. "Is the servants' hall so dull?" he asked, his voice low, clipped, that it spills its venom into the corridors. Betty flushed, curtsied swiftly, and murmured, "My lord." She swept away, her gown swishing like the retreat of a snake into grass. Annika kept her gaze lowered, trembling, afraid to meet his eyes. For a heartbeat, Raphael lingered, his lips parted as if to speak, but he only turned, his cloak brushing the stone as he strode away. Annika's knees nearly buckled. Saved again, and yet never truly seen. The fire in the Baron's chamber burned low, throwing restless shadows across the carved walls. Raphael stood by the window, his broad shoulders tense beneath his linen shirt, hands braced against the frame as the storm wind outside rattled the shutters. He had seen Betty's venom, tasted the poison in her words, yet what unsettled him most was the flicker in Annika's eyes. The way she had shrunk against the wall, dignity trembling on the edge of shattering. It was a look he knew too well, one buried deep in memories of his own youth, when cruelty had shaped his resolve like tempered steel. Why then did it disturb him so? He clenched his jaw, forcing the thought away. She was nothing, a servant. And yet, that nothing had taken root in the hollows of his chest, pricking against walls he had spent years fortifying. Betty, with all her beauty and ambition, stirred no such unrest. Annika, with her quiet defiance and soft spirit, unsettled him. Raphael dragged a hand through his hair, a rare sign of disquiet. "Foolishness," he muttered, though the word carried no conviction. In the dim servants' quarters, Annika tied her meager bundle of belongings with shaking fingers. The humiliation, the constant shadow of suspicion, the unbearable sting of his hostility, it was more than her heart could carry. "Better to leave," she whispered to herself, pressing the cloth tighter around the small parcel. Her friend, Clara, a baker's daughter in the nearby village, had offered her a place to stay. A roof, a smile, freedom from these walls that pressed her spirit to breaking. As she slipped out the back door, the mansion loomed above her, its towers dark and brooding against the night sky. She paused, glancing once toward the highest window, where a faint light still burned. Her heart twisted. Did he even care she was leaving? Or would he be relieved? Pulling her shawl close, Annika turned toward the path, her steps uncertain but determined. And somewhere high above, Raphael remained by the window, unaware that the girl who haunted his thoughts was already slipping into the night. The morning sun spilled across the Baron's estate, golden light kissing the stone walls, but inside the mansion a frost lingered. Raphael strode through the halls with his usual sharp precision, yet when his steward informed him that Annika's chamber was empty, her bed cold, her belongings gone, something inside him buckled. "She left?" His voice was low, but the silence that followed was sharper than a whip. The servants lowered their eyes, no one daring to speak. A muscle worked in his jaw as he turned on his heel. The doors slammed shut behind him, echoing through the corridors. In his study, he poured a measure of brandy with a trembling hand, though his face betrayed nothing. To the world, Baron Raphael was stone, unyielding, untouchable. But within him, a storm howled. She had left. She had chosen to leave him just as his mother did. The absurdity of the thought clawed at him. What right did she have to burrow beneath his skin, to haunt his nights and soften his rage? And yet the emptiness she left behind pressed harder than his pride could bear. So he built his walls higher. To Betty, to the staff, to every soul in the household, he became colder than winter stone. His commands clipped, his gaze merciless, his silence an iron weight. Even Betty, once brazen, began to falter under the chill. Only Martha, the old housekeeper with her shrewd eyes, dared approach him. One evening, finding him staring into the fire, drink untouched, she spoke softly. "You drive everyone away, Raphael. But some hearts aren't meant to be lost. If you care for her, even if you won't name it, you must seek her. Pride won't warm an empty house." Raphael's hand froze on the armrest. His throat tightened, though he masked it with a derisive scoff. But her words dug deep, deeper than he wished to admit. That night, when the fire burned low and the silence grew unbearable, a single thought gnawed at him. Where was Annika now? And was it too late to bring her back? The night was thick and silent when Raphael, restless and prowling, drifted toward the servants' quarters. His boots made no sound on the stone, his form cutting through the shadows like a specter. He paused at the door when low voices met his ear. "I can't believe it," Betty's voice quavered, shrill with spite. "After everything I did to soil Annika," in his eyes, taking his most precious pendant and placing it in Annika's room. "Yet he keeps thinking of her, and he treats me cruelly for it. That man is a monster." A muffled reply followed, and Raphael's jaw tightened when he recognized Timmy's voice. "You're wasting your tears, Betty. I have done what you asked of me." His heart was lost the day she stepped into this place. "You can't fight it." Rage coiled in Raphael's chest, but he did not storm inside. Instead, with icy calm, he returned to his chambers, his mind heavy with revelation. At dawn, his resolve crystallized. Mounting his horse, he rode through the misted fields until at last he found her. Annika, her hair unbound, her eyes soft yet wary as she turned to face him. "Annika," he began, voice rawer than he intended. "I don't know what love is. Not until you came into my life. That day I saw you, nearly lynched by that mob. Something stirred within me, a strange fire I've never known. Please, come back. I want to learn what loving you means." Annika's lips trembled. She searched his face, saw the vulnerability beneath the iron. "I forgive you, Raphael," she whispered, "but I will never return. My heart cannot bear your shadows." The words struck him harder than a blade. Back at the ranch, the walls closed in. Raphael ordered Betty and Timmy seized by the sheriff, his vengeance cold, but his soul was still hollow. That night, he drowned himself in brandy, the liquor burning like his grief. It was Martha, Mrs. Green, who could no longer watch him waste away. Taking quill to parchment, she wrote to Annika with trembling hands. "He loves you, though he may not know how to show it. Don't let a wounded man die alone when you are the only balm for his heart." Days later, the sound of wagon wheels on gravel stirred the estate. Annika had returned. When Raphael saw her step through the doorway, his world cracked open. He smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in years. With a laugh half choked by relief, he pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that sealed their bond before all the astonished staff. Yet joy is never without shadow. 2 days later, an expensive carriage rolled into the courtyard. The horses gleamed. The driver snapped the reins with practiced elegance. From the carriage descended a woman, striking, tall, regal, her gray-blue eyes glinting like steel, her honey-brown hair streaked with silver covered with a black veil. Draped in silks, she moved with confidence born of power. Raphael froze as she was ushered into his home. For the first time in years, his past had arrived at his doorstep. The heavy silence inside the grand hall was pierced only by the steady tick of the mantel clock. The air hung thick, as though the very walls held their breath. Raphael stood rigid, his broad shoulders tense, his storm-gray blue eyes narrowing as the mysterious woman lifted her veil. For a heartbeat, he froze. Her features were unmistakable, the same angular cheekbones, the same piercing gray-blue eyes that gleamed like sharpened ice. Though streaked with silver now, her honey-brown hair framed her face with the grace of a woman who once had been breathtakingly beautiful. Raphael's lips curled into a grim line. "You." His voice cut the air like a blade. "What are you doing here, woman?" Her chest rose and fell with a ragged breath. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she clasped her trembling hands. "Raphael, my son, please listen to me. I did not come here for you to accept me back as a mother. I only need your forgiveness." Her voice cracked, choked with years of buried grief. His jaw tightened, the vein on his temple pulsing. "Impossible. After 24 years, what made you crawl back? Get out of my land, get out of my sight, and never," his voice thundered, shaking with restrained fury, "never show your face to me again." With a gesture sharp as steel, he summoned his men. "Escort her out, now." As the guards moved, Annika, who had been standing near the doorway, rushed forward. Her hazel eyes glistened, her heart twisting at the raw pain etched into Raphael's face. She laid a gentle hand on his arm. "Raphael, please." Her voice was soft, pleading. "My love, forgive her, for in forgiveness we find true happiness and true love. If we do not forgive, we remain chained to the past." But Raphael would not look at her. His gaze fixed hard on the woman as the guards led her away. For days, Annika pleaded with him, her words persistent, tender, relentless as falling rain. She spoke to him in whispers at night, in the quiet of the mornings, in the stillness of the ranch fields. At last, his hardened heart began to crack. Finally, on a gray morning, he gave in. His voice was hoarse when he said, "Summon her." The woman returned, her posture humbled yet dignified, her eyes wary of her son's coldness. She stood before him in the great hall, her hands clutching each other as though they were her only anchor. "I have something to tell you," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "Son, you are such a handsome man. You look so much like your father. He would be proud to see what you have achieved, wherever his soul rests." At the mention of his father, Raphael's eyes hardened further, turning to steel. The air grew colder. Mrs. Blackthorne swallowed hard, her tears spilling freely as she began her tale. "I never wanted to leave you. I never wanted to leave your father as well, but I was forced." Her words tumbled out in waves. "Thomas Reese, he was a ruthless man. Your father owed him a great sum, a debt he could not pay. I begged him, pleaded for time, but he refused. He threatened to kill you and your father. He said he would burn everything we owned to ashes." Her voice cracked as she lifted her sleeves, exposing scars, faded but deep, etched into her pale arms and feet. "I could not watch him kill my son. I could not watch him kill the only man I ever loved. He struck up a bargain with me, that if I go with him, he will clear all the debts we owed him. I gave myself, my happiness to save you both. The debt was cleared, your lives spared. He made me swear it, and there was a written agreement. Before I left, I wrote a letter to your father, left it in his room, explaining everything." Her hands shook as she clutched at her gown. "In Boston, I wrote letters, so many, but I never received a reply. I tried to escape, but each time I was beaten mercilessly. He would not let me go. He held me as his prisoner. A month later," her voice fell to a whisper, "I discovered I was with child." Raphael's brows furrowed, his breath sharp. "She was a beautiful baby girl, Mrs. Blackthorne continued, her lips trembling into a fragile smile. "She took after me, but her blood, her soul, she was your father's child, not Thomas's." Raphael's breath hitched, his body going still as stone. "The midwife who helped me was an old friend. She covered for me, told Thomas the child was his, only born too early. He believed the lie. He raised her as his. But Rachel," her eyes softened, wet with sorrow. "Rachel was always strong-willed, headstrong, and so much like her true bloodline." A stunned silence filled the hall. Raphael's fists clenched at his sides, his heart torn between rage and disbelief. Annika's hand found his, gently squeezing, as if reminding him that compassion could cut through pain. But Raphael's eyes, they had gone cold as frost, a storm brewing in their depths. The weight of silence in the great study pressed heavily upon Raphael Blackthorne. In his hands lay the stack of letters, pages yellowed with time, each ink stroke a cry of love and desperation from the mother he had once despised. His father, stern and proud, had hidden them away, never once telling him of her sacrifice. Raphael's heart twisted as he read the last line of the final letter. "I would endure chains, pain, and exile if only to keep you safe, my son." He closed his eyes, gripping the letters tightly. All those years of bitterness, all the steel he had forged around his heart, dissolved into sorrow and regret. For the first time in 24 years, he no longer felt abandoned, he felt loved. When he entered the hall again, he found her there, Lady Blackthorne, her face lined with sorrow, tears glistening like broken stars. She looked smaller, fragile, humbled by years of suffering. Without hesitation, Raphael crossed the room, bent before her, and pulled her into his arms. For the first time since he was a boy, he embraced his mother. His chest tightened, but he held back the storm of tears. "Mother," he whispered, voice ragged. Her sobs filled the air, but Annika, watching quietly, smiled through her own tears. She had prayed for this moment, and had begged Raphael to soften. Now, before her very eyes, the cold-hearted Baron was finally becoming a man of flesh and blood. In a voice that carried both strength and tenderness, Raphael introduced Annika to his mother as his wife. Lady Blackthorne wept openly, blessing their union with trembling hands. Days later, the great hall bloomed with garlands of ivory roses and golden ribbons. Raphael, once feared for his cruelty, stood proudly beside Annika, his bride. Their wedding day, though simple, became a symbol of hope, proof that even the coldest hearts can be reborn when touched by true devotion. The people whispered that Blackthorne had changed, that perhaps no man was ever beyond redemption. Their wedding was not ostentatious, but filled with quiet elegance, a reflection of their journey, from pain to love, from shadows into light. Yet amid the joy, one shadow lingered. Rachel, Raphael's younger sister, had promised to attend, but never arrived. A letter came instead, bearing troubling news that would soon rattle the fragile peace they had just found. The Blackthorne estate no longer carried the chill of sorrow. Laughter and warmth spilled from its halls, carried on the voices of servants who once tread silently in fear. At its heart stood Raphael and Annika, hand in hand, their love a flame that had weathered storm and shadow. Raphael had been known as the Baron forged of iron, a man untouchable, unbending. Yet love had shattered his walls where hatred could not. In Annika's quiet strength, he had found a light brighter than vengeance, and in his mother's embrace, a forgiveness deeper than time. As Annika leaned against her husband's chest, she knew their story was not the end, but the beginning. For love, once awakened, only grows stronger with each dawn. And somewhere beyond the horizon, destiny stirred again, for the Blackthorne legacy had many secrets yet untold. His sister Rachel was missing, and with her absence came unanswered questions, secrets buried deep, and choices yet to be made. This was not the end, but only the beginning. The saga of the Blackthorne family would continue, of love tested, of legacies challenged, and of hearts learning what it means to truly belong. What would you risk for true love? If you love the unfolding romance of Raphael and Annika, Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more breathtaking tales of passion and betrayal. Tell me in the comments, what was your favorite moment in today's story? And what do you think awaits us in the Blackthorn Heiress? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of Timeless Whispers will be filled with secrets, heartbreak, and a love that defies all odds. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a single twist in these historical romance stories that are sure to make your heart flutter.